Dr. Aviva Romm, not only do you just look stunning and gorgeous, I love that we're both wearing little tank tops right here. Yeah, I guess I knew how to show up today. I'm just so grateful to have you. Welcome to the Perimenopause Revolution. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here. It's a great topic for us to be talking about, right? Because we've known each other for a long time and known of each other for even longer. And now we're in this new phase of life, which is really cool. Although, to be honest, I'm menopausal. I'm postmenopausal. But perimenopause wasn't that long ago, and I remember it really well.
Actually, I want to start with that. I want to start with how does it feel now? How does it feel in your body now? You have been taking care of women for decades. You have been showing up in such a big way, not only for the women in your life, but also for your daughters. Like, you have held space for so many people, and we're going to get into the messy middle in just a second. But I want to know, I'd love to hear, how does it feel now?
Okay, right now, right this minute, I can say it feels phenomenal. I am in such a good place, like deeply authentically, but there was a messy middle for me. It was kind of a messy late middle, which we can touch on, which for me involved a deep sleep issue or lack of deep sleep. And it was one of the worst cases of sleep problems I've encountered. Like, I help women with sleep problems successfully all the time. And I was hitting a wall with my own and has revelations about that. But right now, like, getting good sleep and just getting good movement in my life. And, when sleep is online, it's so much easier for everything else to be online. So I'm feeling really good. A lot of the symptoms that I was having, which were just a few, but they were significant, feel like I'm in a shift place where they're easing up a lot. And for me, it was sleep, cognitive, emotional. I was very fortunate with the physical symptoms, but there were some.
Perimenopause, Aviva, has felt so destabilizing for me.
Yeah.
Because of the brain-related symptoms, the mental, the emotional, more than anything. Sleep has not been an issue yet, but I will tell you, it will make or break me any day of the week. And I will wake up as if I'm like, did I just drink 5 glasses of wine last night? Like, that's what this feels like. So talk to me about because lack of sleep is such a reckoning.
Yeah. Well, so for me, perimenopause was interesting because what happened for me, I was like 50 and I started having some skipped periods, and then I would have like 2 periods. Girl, I had a period where I bled through my pants onto my sofa. My daughter was sitting next to me and she's an adult, and I got up and because, like, you can feel that wetness. I was like, what the heck is going on? I was like, oh my God. She's like, Mom, you're like a teenager. I'm like, this was so awkward.
You're like, no, I'm not. Let me tell you, no, I'm not.
I'm having those irregular periods, but I'm still friends with my best friend from middle school, and we're 3 months apart. She's 3 months older than I am. And it was like we were in lockstep. She was having similar period changes. Then we both started having like a little bit of hot flashes, and then our cycles stopped. And for me, the conscious symptoms of perimenopause were just those. And I've been working with women for 40 years. So it was only like after that I retrospectively thought, oh, that weird frozen shoulder I was getting out of nowhere. Like, I went and got a Lyme test. I live in the Northeast. I was like, do I have Lyme? Because like my shoulder's really painful and I don't know why. And like, it was affecting my yoga, my movement, and it would come and go. It wasn't until after that I was like, oh, that's what that was. And then it wasn't until a few years later, really after menopause started for me, that I started having a lot of mood stuff. And primarily it was raging at my husband. I mean, I'm talking full on raging. I was just, the littlest things were setting me off. And thankfully we've been together a long time and he was really patient, but I'm working on a menopause book right now, and I'm actually I have a little note in my journal to remember to write about the menopause, right? Like this idea that we're going through so much, and whether you've been in a long-term relationship or a new relationship, you're changing. So you're changing within that relationship, and your needs may be changing, your expectations may be changing. So I jokingly like calling it the menopause, and just some intentional time to ourselves, time apart to like reflect, think, and cool it down a little bit. The cognitive changes for me happened later, along with, let me just backtrack and say in 2017, I wrote or published a book called The Adrenal Thyroid Revolution.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. And what happened with that book and that was I was like one of the first people to say like permission to pause, reset, reboot. And what actually happened to me was I had too many tabs open on my computer when I was working on this project, and it just went into that spin, like that little spin where it's like, oh, am I going to have to restart my computer? And that's what I had to do. I had to reboot, just restart it. Mm-hmm. And that became kind of a metaphor for me of too many tabs open, because what I found is that previously, I was really effective at having like multiple projects going on at one time or multiple windows open and extracting lots of information and distilling it. And all of a sudden for me, the cognitive thing was that too many tabs open, too many bits of kind of similar information sent my brain into kind of a spin. It was like I couldn't process multiple versions of a similar document if I had to edit it to create one document. It was very, very tangible for me that this was a difference. And it just changed my processing speed around things. And
what did it feel like? I'm just curious, because I always call that the executive function of all of us and how our executive function comes offline and how many of us that's our whole everything. That's our whole work. Having to write a book, the complexity of pulling research, having multiple chapters open, referencing, cross-referencing, and all of a sudden your brain's like, no, I'm just not going to show up today. I'm good.
Yeah, my brain's like, can we just go out to the garden or read a book?
Exactly. Or fold some laundry. I can do that.
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of interesting because postpartum is a little bit like that, right? When I'm preparing moms for postpartum, I say to them, look, you may have been a multi-hyphenate, multifunctioning, multitasking person before, but your bandwidth is going to be different with a new baby. Your focus and concentration are going to be different, and you're going to be preoccupied in ways that you're not even realizing are affecting your cognitive function, and your brain is changing during that time. So when I'm helping a mama get ready for postpartum, or she's in postpartum and she's feeling that cognitive emotional overwhelm, I remind her that we have to just reset our expectations for ourselves. And as new moms, we have a little bit more latitude to do that. But in perimenopause and menopause, you're full on in your career. You can't just say to your publisher, I'm sorry, I need 2 more years to write this. But you can, but they might not say yes. Number of women in perimenopause and menopause that leave the workforce, whether because they feel like they're embarrassed or they can't keep up or they're let go of because they can't keep up or they're missing work days, is actually
it's astounding. It's $26 billion in lost revenue from absenteeism or having to step away or healthcare costs for women in peri and early menopause.
It's shocking. And what's really kind of criminal about that is we know that we're going through these cognitive changes, and most of us at some point have that fear, like, is it the D word, dementia, right? But we also know that when we step away from work that gives us meaning and purpose and focus, that actually worsens cognitive function and worsens our moods. So there's this catch-22 of like, we're stepping out of the workforce at a time when we're bringing our biggest wisdom, our biggest life experience, our years of doing whatever our career was, and at a time when our brains need us to keep engaged, our emotions and moods and sense of self need us to keep engaged. So for me, what it felt like initially was confusing. I'm like, what the F is going on there? Like confusing, because I've never had problems like that before. And then it was overwhelming because I had to keep up with things and I was struggling to keep up with things. And at some point, somewhat terrifying. Like, is this my new normal? And if it is, what does this actually mean for me economically, professionally, but also just personally and my sense of self? And then terrifying, like, is this some bigger cognitive process going on that I need to be worried about? So I went through a lot of big feelings around all of this for myself. And I think have come to a little bit more grace about it. One is I have definitely reprioritized, right? I do say no to more things because I don't find that my pace is the same as it was, or my desire for the pace I was keeping is exactly the same. Getting my sleep back on has helped tremendously. really makes me cognizant of things like staying well hydrated, getting exercise and active movement.
My emotional support water, I call it.
Keeping my blood sugar steady. The things that spending time with girlfriends and loved ones, the things that we know nourish and keep our brains healthy and keep our function really high. I just really needed to double down on those. Like I couldn't compromise and be like, oh, I'm working. I'm not going to step outside and take a walk right now. Or, oh, well, I forgot to hydrate. I'll have some water later. Like it's just, I've got to keep up with those things. I do want to emphasize that it can be really stigmatizing for women, or women fear being stigmatized when we talk about these things. And I want to really clarify that from all the research that I have encountered, our intellectual capabilities and capacity do not go down. Our intelligence doesn't go down. It's really just this kind of multitasking and like multiple documents, multiple moving parts all at once that can create a sense of overwhelm. So that's another thing, is keeping fewer tabs, literally, like when I'm working on a project, keeping open just what I need to keep open and not allowing myself to be bouncing from one thing to another, right? It's like if I'm working on my book, if I'm working on course content, that's what I focus on, and don't let myself stop and go check my social media or go check my email, because each of those little disruptions just adds more to that distraction and cognitive disarray. So intentionally focusing and intentionally staying present also has been incredibly helpful for me.
Yeah, I think that one of the big takeaways I am hearing, and I agree, I don't feel like my intelligence has shifted, but my lack of word recall, like I'm like, whoa. Like, oh, and I walk into a room with such confidence everywhere I go. I'm just marching into somewhere, and I cannot tell you how often I'm like, why did I come in here with such veracity? I have no idea why I'm here anymore. The big through line I heard that I want to just kind of put a pin in, and I would love for you to talk a little bit more about it, is being more intentional. Being more intentional.
Yeah.
And not letting things slide. Like the way that we may have used to.
Realistic goals for myself, so that I'm not setting goals that I'm constantly unable to keep up with or disappointed by. That's been really helpful for me too. It's just sort of a reframe and a reset. And I was talking with Lisa Mosconi about this. Most people have heard of her by now. She's an incredible neuroscientist, and she wrote the XX brain and the menopause brain, and she happens to be a friend. And she was saying that the cognitive rewiring that happens during perimenopause and menopause takes about 8 or 9 years. And what's interesting for me is I'm 59. I went into menopause at 51, and I'm finding a remembering of how my cognitive function was before. But there was a period of time, much like when you have a new baby, where you have to reframe your expectations and just be practical and realistic about what you can get done. I mean, here's an example. I was setting out to do a project this morning that I really needed to do. A girlfriend called me. I could see that she was calling because my phone was visible. And I hadn't talked to her in a while, and I felt like I kept putting her off. And then, so I spoke with her. It ended up being about 45 minutes, but that took 45 minutes off of the time that I really did need for this project. So that created a sense of inner scramble, like more of a rush, that I didn't have the sort of bandwidth to integrate into the project that I needed to get done. I needed that spaciousness to feel like I could get it done. So afterward, I was talking with my husband. I said, I need to really make sure that when I have focused time on my calendar for a specific project, I'm sticking with that, because I could have texted my girlfriend and said, so want to speak with you right now. Let's talk Friday afternoon. And like having that time of the week set aside, whether it's an evening or a Saturday, so that you're not constantly dividing your attention and task switching. Like if you have to order things on Amazon because you need things to, replenish stuff in your bathroom, have a time of the week that you're doing all those things bunched together, instead of like working on that thing I need to work on. Oh, right. Let me order the Amazon. Oh, let me talk to my girlfriend. Oh, let me do this thing for my kids. Oh, let me remember to get the dry cleaning. And then all of a sudden your brain is so distracted, you can't do the thing at hand.
No, I so deeply appreciate that. I think I'm still, as a mom, because my son is 4, And I do find myself kind of being pulled in multiple directions with him. It's just kind of whatever comes up. I remember working on the book, the newest one I'm releasing, The Perimenopause Revolution. There were days, one of the things that have come up for me in my perimenopause journey is chronic migraines. And I remember working on the the brain chapter, or part of the brain chapter, citing Mosconi's work, how estrogen is such a major player. This is a neuroendocrine transition, like really helping women to understand, like, one, you're not crazy. Your brain is massively remodeling like it did in puberty and postpartum if you had children. But I remember these days when I was working on that part and again, pulling content and research and information, and I would have these migraines and I would have to stop. I remember there would be days where I would just cry because I would look at my computer screen and I'm like, I can't do this. And I remember reaching out to Hay House when I had one of my meetings and I was like, are you sure I'm supposed to be the person who's writing this book?
I'm my publisher too. And my book agent is in her mid-60s and my publisher is 2 weeks younger than I am. And they're both like, we need this book, Aviva. We need this book. And we get it. I've written how many books now? Like 9 books. This is the first time I've ever taken an extension on a book. I'm like, I need 6 more months, partly because of just needing that extra spaciousness that we've been talking about. But partly there's so much information and misinformation and conflicting, competing information in the menopause space and perimenopause space that I've really needed longer to integrate it and digest it.
Yeah.
One thing I want to add in that I think is really important. Well, a couple of things. One is that so often sleep is disrupted by menopause, perimenopause, and menopause. And what a lot of women don't realize is you can be having hot flashes, but not consciously registering you're having hot flashes. So a lot of women are being woken up from sleep by hot flashes that they didn't realize they were having. Many of us do realize, but you can just have a surge in your temperature that then causes a surge in cortisol that causes you to wake up. And if that surge in cortisol is happening at like 3, 4 in the morning, your brain may mistake it for a cortisol awakening response, and then you're up for the day. And it's very hard. It's like someone flipped the lights on.
Especially if you already have cortisol kind of deregulate. You may just have more in the system. So when you hit that, the cortisol is gently releasing initially where you're not supposed to notice at 3 or 4 o'clock yet. Yeah. But if we have chronic stress issues, we've got a hot flash that happens, and then it just, here we are, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Sleep is disrupted by anything.
Yeah.
That is going to affect your cognitive functions. So the first thing to know is that most women are not going to develop dementia, Alzheimer's, dementia. It's, even though the numbers are high, it's actually
disproportionately to men.
Yeah, it's very rare for most of us. Most of us are not going to develop it. So we can generally take that worry off the table. If you have a family member who had the onset of dementia early, or you're having significant symptoms, or just are worried, you can always get a mini or, cognitive testing done, and just to put your mind at ease. But in general, we can kind of take that worry off the table. If you're having daytime cognitive dysfunction, always look to sleep. But the thing that I wanted to mention, and I think this is incredibly important and being dramatically overlooked, is that this menopause and perimenopause revolution that we're seeing now has really started in the last few years. And it has started at the same time as we were coming out of COVID. And we know that COVID has disproportionately affected women in perimenopause and menopause. And we know that it affects cognitive function. And we know that there can be long-term, even 2 or 3 years of shifts in our cognitive function, a little bit of diminished cognitive sharpness, if you will. That sense of overwhelm and brain fog can be due to COVID. It can also be, I really want women to keep that in mind, that it may be that hormone replacement therapy, for example, menopause hormone therapy, is helpful, but don't just assume it's menopause. The other thing is a lot of women are walking around, for example, with iron deficiency anemia, and that can cause cognitive issues. Hypothyroidism can cause cognitive issues. But I do want folks to be mindful. If you have other symptoms that look like potentially long COVID, or if you had a more significant COVID experience, you're in that perimenopause era or menopause era, don't discount that that could be causing it or contributing to it. And it can contribute to sleep problems as well. That's one of the biggest reported symptoms of long COVID is sleep problems.
Yeah, I always think it's a yes and. I think about my kind of yes and. I had my son at 41. I was coming out of postpartum. Again, he was born in 2020. So he was born in COVID. And I came out of postpartum probably at 43, about 2 years. I was still breastfeeding. And I started to feel a shift. And then I had two back-to-back concussions, that summer. And my brain, I had severe concussion syndrome, severe post-concussion syndrome in general. I was diagnosed and all of that. And that's when my perimenopause symptoms were also showing up. And so it was so many things all at once. It was trauma. My Hajis flared. My peri was happening. I was like, oh my gosh, like it was a cacophony. It was a yes and. Like I had tipped the scale of resilience and my capacity, and it all just kind of flared. And with Perry, I feel like it's kind of like whatever shield may be holding things together starts to falter a little bit. And maybe we were like managing. We were managing the sleep, or we were getting by without it, but then,
right? Or you're like high functioning with,
high functioning. Yeah. And then you can't high function anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that was definitely the case for me. And I can say and I think you can see it in me, like in my energy. And I was talking, like, I'm in a very different place. I feel like I've come through a tunnel, and now I'm hopefully for the long run back on the other side. But there were about 18 months there that I was like, can I not write books anymore? Am I not going to be able to write articles anymore? I found that sometimes when I was doing my podcast, especially if I was live, I would be doing a workaround around a word that I wasn't coming up with really quickly. It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can deeply relate. And the best word I can feel, it's destabilizing.
Right.
I think you did such a great job of kind of all the feelings that you were going through. Just one, feeling terrified, also feeling frustrated, one, confused, and I probably, days you were thinking like, when am I going to come back online?
Yeah.
And what again, and probably you probably were looking at a lot of testing, Aviva. I have a feeling you're like, is it thyroid? Is it my,
I had a full lab panel done. My ferritin, my iron were great. My TSH was ideal. It was optimal. My T3, T4 were normal. I did inflammatory labs, HSCRP and ESR. They were totally normal. I did a Lyme test. I mean, I did it.
You were going down the rabbit hole.
It was wonderful. It was reassuring. Like, oh, this is all great. But then
it was still there. Like, you're like, okay.
It was worse in a way, because it was like, okay, if I were anemic, I could go, all right, I can fix that. If it were my thyroid, I wouldn't want it to be, but it's like, okay, I know how to optimize that. This is just sort of uncomfortable. It was scary. I mean, it really was. I mean, and I'd have long conversations with my husband about it. And he's like, but you seem fine to me, except for the anger. Like cognitively, he's like, you seem fine. I'm like, yeah, but when I'm actually trying to produce high level content, like, I'm struggling.
Mm. And I know we talked a little bit about, I was going to ask you, like, who was your support system during that time?
Yeah. I mean, I had to talk to other women going through it, because I think I would have gone mad on some level. Like, I would have just been so scared and so isolated if I didn't have other friends. Like the fact that my closest childhood girlfriend was going through some of the same symptoms at the same time, or other women I knew. And honestly, it was different. I mean, I've been taking care of menopausal women for 3 decades, but when you're going through it yourself, it's just really different. And so, yes, intellectually, I knew, but having those friends who were like, yeah, this is really hard. I'm really going through this. That was like the anchor for me. That was the rock.
No, I agree with you. Like, knowing that other people are in, it can feel so isolating. Yes. When you're having that level of an experience, and it can really feel like, man, is this only happening to me? Like, is everyone else doing okay? Even though you've taken care of patients, like, you're like, was it this bad? Did it feel like this? And so I'm so grateful you had women to really count on who said, yeah,
I went to my PCP, let me tell you. So I was having this pretty significant sleep problem, like where I was waking up at 2 or 3 and not able to go back to sleep. And I'm, putting my herbs together, I'm putting my supplements together, but nothing was quite shifting it for any significant period of time. And again, even though I've helped so many other women, it was just my own self. It was just harder to be my own practitioner. It's like, I'm going to go to my primary care provider. And she was on postpartum leave. So I saw this woman who was in her mid 60s, and she literally told me, you should just get used to this. This is your new normal. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, I was like, hormones. No, they're not really indicated for this. I was like, okay, but this is also causing me like significant daytime anxiety. I'm having anxiety when I woke up. And she's like, well, we don't have time to talk about that. We'll have to talk about that at the next visit. I was like, do you know you're talking to a patient advocate here. You can't just dismiss me. But what I realized is she was clueless. She literally had no idea. And she was living with it herself. That's what she said. She's like, well, here's what I do. I listen to books on tape at night and I just grin and bear it. And I was like, oh no. Mm-mm.
So many things to unpack that are so wrong here. One, what a deep appreciation that you got to experience what so many of your patients experience, right? You know, when you're like sitting in that room and you're just like, this is what it feels like when someone is brushing me off and telling me there's nothing I can do about this. I'm like, okay. All right. I had a woman at the end of this journey I was telling you about. So I knew something was wrong. We had mold in the house. Like it was just the next assault on the system. And I go in and I have a list of labs. I want to look at ESR, homocysteine, highly sensitive CRP. I've got a list. I'm very clear. I just wanted to run it. I don't want anything from this woman. And I sit down and I'm like, listen, I just know something's not right. Can I get these labs so I can see what's going on? And she's like, you've been in here a couple times this year with similar symptoms. And she's like, I can't do anything for you. And I looked back at her and I'm like, I know you can't do anything for me. Like, I'm real clear on that.
Yeah, totally. And this is, well demonstrated in the medical literature, is if you were to then go to the next doctor and the next doctor and the next doctor, then each doctor starts seeing that you're the patient,
the constant complainer.
Right. You're the constant complainer and there's no answer because it must be psychological. Mm-hmm. And then you continue to get dismissed or prescribed psych meds.
No, yeah. The second thing I think I loved about that was that you were clear what was happening, just what was going on. And what breaks my heart, and mind you, she's in her 60s. And so I get that was just her experience, right? Probably the Women's Health Initiative was happening when she was going through perimenopause, menopause, and they're got nothing for you. And so this is just what she was brought up. You just tolerate this. And if there's,
let me tell you what happened then. So my PCP comes back a couple of months later. I go and see her and I'm like, I just want to start some hormone replacement therapy and see how it feels. I'm writing this book. I'm, never tried hormone. I've never been on birth control, anything. Let me just give it a try. And she gives me this whole song and dance about how it's not indicated for me. And I'm like, well, the literature is scant on this, but it does exist. And if I'm having hot flashes, the literature is very clear for that can help my sleep. So she goes to prescribe progesterone at first. She's like, let's just start with progesterone. I'm like, fine.
Always.
This all the time.
This is in peri that we see this first, not menopause.
No idea how to prescribe it. So I had to tell her how to prescribe it. She ends up only being able to access this generic progesterone.
Yeah, permetrine.
Then it wasn't flipping the switch for me at all after about a month. And I'm like, let's go ahead and try adding an estrogen patch to it. And she prescribed me a completely wrong estrogen patch. My husband actually went to pick it up for me at the pharmacy. It was $165 out of pocket. And she prescribed me some like low dose that's used for osteoporosis. And when I got it, it couldn't be returned. And I wrote her in my portal and I said, wow, you've totally prescribed, I was very kind about it. She's a colleague, but you prescribed totally the wrong. She's like, I'm so sorry. So what I took away from this entire experience is exactly what why I do this work, which is most doctors just have no idea. Look, I had 7 years of medical education, including at a medical institution where there is a leading menopause doctor. She's written a book. She's well known. We had 0 hours, and I specialized in family medicine with obstetrics and women's health. We had 0 education on anything to do with menopause. Nothing. I mean, not even the controversies or the pushback on the Women's Health Initiative, which you mentioned, just
nothing. No, I know even today, I think it's only 20% of OBGYNs feel confident in perimenopause and menopause care.
And that's OBGYN. So think about internal medicine doctor,
cardiologists. I mean, endocrinologist, all of it, anyone, even cardiologists need to know, gosh, there's just so many perimenopause and menopause. I always call it's a whole body remodel.
Absolutely.
And there are so many, women are losing bone, they're losing muscle, their brains are massively reorganizing. And yet no one in the medical system is prepared to support and address them. But it's amazing how many times you had to go back and advocate.
Oh, yeah.
Like
it's a long story. It's an even longer story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Finally, I was like, this is not helping me at all. Like this
isn't working. This isn't working
here at all.
Did you end up going somewhere else? Did you find?
No, I went back to basics and just started, what I did was double down on all the things that we talked about. I started really hydrating much more. I started exercising more, not aggressively, but like doing more yoga. I added yoga nidra to my nighttime routine and more meditation. I went back to journaling. And it takes a lot of work in a way to do those things. It's not like a lot of hours. There's like, you have to be really dedicated to it. Yeah. So, making a list, that's a checklist if you need to, of like, okay, here are the things. And then just seeing over time what stacks up to help you. But we do need more of us. I mean, I am a hormone therapy provider, prescriber. I am a menopause practitioner, perimenopause and menopause practitioner. We desperately need more practitioners who can answer those questions for women, whether it's a more natural, holistic approach that does or doesn't include hormone therapy or antidepressants or any of the other things. Because the other problem is that the one thing that these doctors are often doing is doling out pharmaceuticals for sleep. And those can have really serious implications.
I agree.
For women particularly, whether it's the benzodiazepines or the Z drugs like Zolpidem, et cetera. Those can have pretty significant impacts, not only addictive tendencies with those drugs, but issues of potential cognitive impact and also risk of overdose for the benzos. And then just the very real factor that for women taking the Z drugs, like the Ambien and so forth, those can increase our risk of accidents and other problems because we don't metabolize them the same way men do. So that's one of the few things that these docs do know how to prescribe and are often prescribing for sleep problems or the benzos for anxiety, which is a huge issue for menopausal women as well.
No, agreed. Yeah. I mean, I think about the most common symptoms in perimenopause. Growing up, I was under the assumption, again, misinformed assumption. And I think it's just the way we were marketing it was hot flashes. It was night sweats. It was vaginal dryness, maybe painful intercourse, low libido, maybe sleep issues. And then everything else you were just making up, or that you were just stressed, or you were just a mom. Like, I just felt like it was a lot of brush off.
Absolutely. No, when I wrote my textbook on herbal medicine in 2009 is when it was the first edition came out. The research at the time was that menopause changes, hormonal changes, do not cause anxiety and depression. It's just a function of midlife. And we now know that the impact of declining estrogen and progesterone on the brain, on the nervous system, absolutely has an impact on anxiety, depression, and sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Another question I have for you, just a question, if you could go back, what would be a piece of advice you would have given your late reproductive stage self or early perimenopause self that would have just shifted knowing what you know now?
I think for me, I would have increased my strength training at that time, just to really have that full on deep, lean muscle build, because we know that's not only beneficial for our self-concept and how we feel, but our actual physical strength, but also the mitochondria that we're creating, which can help with cardiovascular function, energy, mood, cognitive function. So maybe increase my strength training earlier. That would be one. I think not so much for myself, but for women who really are struggling in that perimenopause period, particularly, that is the sweet spot. So if you are going to do menopausal hormone therapy, I would try it earlier than later, not put it off for too long if you're struggling and think that it might be something you're open to, because we know that the cognitive benefits are, the greatest if we start earlier, potential mood benefits, potential sleep benefits. So if it's something you're open to, considering that in that late perimenopausal phase.
I agree. I'm on all the hormones. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not. I'm on my thyroid hormone.
I'm not, but I'm very much a supporter of them.
Yeah. My brain just, whew. Was it postpartum peri? Was it the brain hits? I just don't know, but I was like, and the migraines, I was like, we're going to dial this, and so they've been helpful. Have they been the biggest needle mover? No. What I loved that you spent a lot of time with is the lifestyle strategies and the consistency of them.
Yeah.
I actually want to talk about that consistency for a second. That has been the greatest thing. Like I said, my sleep consistency is often 85%. So I'm in bed by 10, I'm up by 6.
That's
and
right.
I always say, if it's not $1 million meeting, I'm not entertaining it in the evening. Like if my husband's like, I'm like, nope. You can talk to me in the morning.
Yep.
I'm done. That's my boundary. But I think a lot of women, the idea of consistency and being intentional, I think we flew through our 20s and our 30s, most of us, where we had wiggle room. We could get away with some things. Sleep consistency could be, 50%, and it would be fine. And then you get to this moment where you're just like, whoa. That's a lot of signals from my body telling me that something's shifting, and what got me here isn't going to get me there.
Right.
And that has been the biggest lesson for me is I've got to be consistent and intentional. And it took me a minute to kind of reconcile that. Did you find?
Like when we're pregnant, right? If someone, who's listening is someone who has children or has been pregnant, we know, like, we change how we eat, we change our movement, we change things when we're pregnant. We have to be as thoughtful and intentional. It's so much more invisible. It's not obvious, but yes, intentionality is so critical. One of the things that I started using was an actual day planner so that I didn't overschedule myself and overburden myself. That's been really helpful. Another thing that I did for myself very intentionally was I set aside, and I'm in the position where I can do this, but after 1:00 on Fridays, it's just time for me or time for girlfriends or time for being outdoors or doing an activity. It's like I am off the devices and I am just living my life. One of the things that I would say for those listening who are still including alcohol, I've never been a drinker, so for me, this was not an issue, but I do know that even like the smallest amount, like a half a glass of red wine, it would jack my sleep. There's no way. Like, you could barely pay me like, maybe if you paid me $1 million, sure. But
maybe, I mean, to wreck my sleep that night, my blood glucose, my sleep.
Right.
Yeah, no.
But, one thing I would definitely say to women, if you are drinking at all and you have any perimenopausal symptoms or menopausal, and you don't want to 100% get the alcohol completely out, just like take it out. The other thing I think that can really help intentionality is not try to go it alone. So one of the things that we know that happens during perimenopause and menopause is when we have these changes in sleep, when we have these changes in cortisol, when that executive function goes offline a little bit because our brain is remodeling, with that can go our willpower. And so if you're trying to muscle through just on willpower, that is going to make it really challenging to stick to the commitments that you're making for yourself. So if you're doing it with a small posse, so that's another thing I would highly encourage women to do. Find one or two, and I would say ideally two other girlfriends who are going through this at the same life stage as you, or people in your community, even if it's not girlfriends. Find people and make commitments with them, do that yoga class together. And the reason I say don't just do it with one person is because if she has to step back for any reason, or she doesn't follow through, or she just has life happen, then it's back on you to stick with the follow through. But if you have 3 of you doing it, you can rotate if you need a night off or if something comes up, and not feel like now you're going it alone or someone else is going it alone. But these small posses can make a huge difference in getting through all of this.
I just big amen to that. Like, yes. I mean, we are better together. One of my last questions I have for you is, what do you want what do you want to be a part of when it comes to changing the perimenopause and menopause narrative for the next generation of women? What do you want to say to those women coming in?
So I really want to, one, reduce the silence. And I think we're seeing that silence being dismantled completely, right? In the menopause, perimenopause and menopause space right now. But part of what it is being replaced by is a lot of fear tactics about menopause. So I'm seeing a lot of misinformation. So for example, one very well-known menopause influencer, and this was picked up by several others, was saying something like 1 in 5 women will lose a tooth in the first 5 years after menopause. That is not based on any solid research. That is not a fact. That is not real information, but that's terrifying, right? And then the solution is, of course, in the wellness menopause space now, take hormone therapy, and there are lots of places you can go and get it. And again, I'm 100% supportive of it, but we shouldn't do it out of fear. Another piece of misinformation that I'm seeing is that 2/3 of women will end up in a nursing facility, and due to bone loss or other complications that are then sort of like traced back to menopause. First of all, that data is completely wrong. It's something like 0.5% of all Americans end up in nursing care. It's really small. Of those, 60% of are women, but it's not 60% of us that end up in nursing care. So I really want us to be able to, the narrative is this is a unique and important phase of life that before we even enter it, we want to be mindful and prepared with the things that we can do to make it easier when we do get there. When we are there, we have a really clear tool set, including people that we're going to turn to and skills that we're going to use. Yeah, so the big narrative I want to change is that, yes, this is a very specific and unique time of life that we want to think specially about and think thoughtfully, be thoughtful and mindful and deep in our full whole woman care about. But we don't have to be terrified about it. We don't have to be terrified by it. And it is not some beginning of decrepitude where you're going to start losing teeth and bones are start to crumble and you're going to lose lean muscle mass. I mean, even that data that's put out a lot, or this thought that's put out a lot, let me rephrase that. Even that fear mongering that's put out a lot, that we're going to lose all this lean muscle mass because of menopause, does not have to be true. It's true if we become sedentary. It's true if we don't keep moving our bodies. Menopause is not a recipe for osteopenia and osteoporosis. Not getting enough calcium, not getting enough weight-bearing exercise. That's what leads to that. So what are all of the things that we can learn about and do to prevent those shifts? They're not inevitable as we're being led to, I feel, and fear, believe, by the current menopause movement.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of that. And also I think about my mom's mom, not my mom. My mom is crushing menopause. I mean, just next level. She decided she was I call it the fork in the road. I think, you decide whether it happens to you or you're going to be proactive. And I think there was a narrative, at least when I was growing up, that it kind of just happened to you, kind of like what your PCP said, the substitute PCP.
Grin and bear it.
It was just like, you grin and bear it. I'm like, actually, there's so many things that we can do. Yeah. There's so many things that we can do to future-proof our health. There's so many things that we can do to protect our bone and protect our muscle and to feel more alive in our body. But if we're sitting on our butts all day, eating ultra-processed foods and drinking wine at night and not honoring our sleep, we may see some of that unfold, as we head into our late 60s and beyond. And so, but I think the big message, for me, is letting women know that we have tools, we have strategies. We get to decide how we want to feel in the second half of our lives. It's a choosing.
Yeah. I think we're so redefining menopause as the new sexy too. I mean, I was looking at Michelle.
Look at you and your tank top. I was like, oh, ooh.
Michelle Obama, Jennifer Lopez. I mean, there's just so many women who are this age, right? We are this age now in their 60s and their 70s too, who are just hot and beautiful and brilliant and role models. And that is part of the narrative I want us to really emphasize, is that this is a powerful, very, very powerful time in our lives. It's a time to honor. It's a time to honor our wisdom, or the wisdom that we're coming into when we're in perimenopause. and to not let ourselves be diminished or made small, or let our changes that we're going through make us start to fundamentally doubt ourselves. And I think for me, that is I've always been this incredibly confident woman. And as I was going through these cognitive shifts, I was letting the newness of it, somehow I was judging myself by the newness of it rather than being curious about it. And maybe that's another piece of it, is how do we get curious about what we're experiencing? And then how do we take ownership of what we can do? So as you say, and as I talk about in my forthcoming book, how do we take ownership of this as it's something that we are engaging in, not that's happening to us, something we're doing, not being done to us.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not disillusioned. I know I can feel the changes. I know I can feel the shifts, and not every day is my favorite day.
No.
And if anything, it's just a beautiful reminder to be intentional, to really do the habits, to be consistent. Even though I'm having a crappy day doesn't mean I'm going to throw my sleep away that night, or I'm not going to eat to balance my blood glucose, or I'm not going to move and be outside in nature. If anything, it's my body saying, girl, keep doing the things because we're going to need it.
Totally. And understanding what's happening. So for example, like so many women get to our era and they're like, oh, it's the end of the day. I just want that glass of wine or two. But understanding that there are changes in the perimenopause and menopause brain that actually make us want to drink alcohol, that change our relationship to alcohol, even if you've never been a drinker. So understanding and going, okay, these are thoughts, these are impulses, but what is it that really nourishes me and feeds me and keeps me feeling my best? And also remember, I have 4 kids. I can remember days in my postpartum that weren't my best days either. And I can remember days when I was in puberty that weren't my best days either. So it's like, it can feel so magnified. And remember, this is just part of the continuum and you will get through this too. It's like, you will come out the other end and it's really beautiful.
Yeah. Boundaries. Getting clear on what you wanted, knowing what you loved. Talk to me about that. Did you find before heading into where you were like, okay, things are shifting, I'm reevaluating? So I think it's a reevaluation. I always say we get to be discerning. It's discernment. Were the things that you were walking into where you're like, man, actually, I've been holding on to that belief. I don't know why anymore. Actually, I have been saying yes and I meant to say no. Did you find that you were like, I am more fully who I am as you stepped in? And what did that look like?
I felt for quite a while that I was much less fully who I was. I've always been really good at boundaries, and that has not been a problem for me most of my life. I think that over time, as I've gotten busier and as the world has become more demanding, whether it's the added work of social media or the added work of any number of things that we're experiencing in the world right now, my boundaries stayed pretty clear. But for a while, I think that I was actually experiencing something different, which is as I was going through the sleep and the cognitive uncertainties that were causing me anxiety, I was having thoughts like, have I already accomplished what I'm going to accomplish? And now I'm at the end of the road. I was writing books so early and so young. I was having thoughts like, did I peak early? Literally, I was having these conversations with my husband. He's like, what? No. I was having thoughts like, am I getting too old to start something new? This is crazy. Why am I thinking about rebooting my practice to something new and bigger? Why am I thinking? So I think for me, I was holding myself back for a while in there. And now I feel a little bit more unleashed again. What I can say is that I give less F's than ever. That is one really big shift for me. But I feel like I'm coming into a new level of my own self. Where I've gotten clearer and more boundaried is just in being more honest and more direct. So for example, this is just something that happened to me yesterday. I had a woman who reached out to me to schedule a meeting about doing some potential collaborative work. She initiated it. She no-showed for the meeting and then wrote me later and apologized. Something had come up, but something that she knew the night before. So she could have actually told me.
Yeah.
And so I sat there waiting at the meeting and I scheduled my time around it. And then she wrote to reschedule the meeting. And I wrote her back and I said, I'm happy to reschedule, But before I do, I need a clear sense of what you're hoping to accomplish at this meeting. Because if I get an email back from her that's like not actually that valuable or beneficial to me at this moment in my life, I will decline to set a second meeting. As one of my very dear friends, who's a highly productive, highly accomplished woman, said, have some guide rails or guardrails for like what you say yes to. So the guardrails for me are, is it mutually or personally beneficial, or is what I'm doing just helping someone else in their work? In that, if it's someone who else is already successful or has a company and they're just reaching out to me for something to like help them, but there's going to be no added value for me and it actually takes my time, then the answer is no. If it doesn't bring some equal monetary reward for the time that it's going to take me to do that thing, or if it doesn't bring me joy or feed my purpose and mission. So there's plenty of work that I do 100% for free. I'm on the board of Every Mother Counts, which is an incredible maternal health organization started by Christy Turlington. I pay to go to meetings. I pay to travel. I give my time. That brings me joy and it's part of my mission. So I have these 3 kind of truly guardrails that I consider now when somebody asks me to do something.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I can't even imagine someone no-showing in the initiation of, if there was an emergency with my son, I would have told you, I would have reached out, I would have gotten your phone number and texted you.
I have to say, the no-show thing sometimes happens to women in perimenopause or menopause. I actually, for the first time ever this past year, had 2 no-shows just because I didn't look at my calendar and I was so focused on something else I was doing. So it can happen. But more importantly was that I didn't even really know what the ask was. I'm setting up a meeting. I don't really know what the ask was. This could be a complete non-value use of my time and I love helping other people, but I want to help other people in a way that amplifies change, or not just like a one-off, let me help you with something about your business that is just profit for someone else, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally understand that. I totally get that. My very last question in this beautiful conversation, it's been my favorite to ask, is what is your menopause superpower? So the strength or the insight that you have gained that you feel like you may not have discovered otherwise.
Let's see. That one's going to take me a second to think about. Mentorship. My menopause superpower that I would never have considered previously is owning the mantle of a leader and a mentor and a wise woman. I've been doing this work for a really long time. I have a lot of lived experience. And I think at this moment in my life, that is probably the biggest legacy that I want to create and leave. It's really interesting because as we go through perimenopause and menopause, our bodies naturally change, right? I don't look the way I looked in my 20s or 30s or even well into my 40s, right? My hair is different. My skin is different. My body's a little different or a lot different. And it's really easy, especially in our culture, to put a lot of value on our appearance, especially for those of us who have been valued partially or validated partially by our appearance. And we know that happens. I mean, even in med school, there's one research study that found that the top 25% of med school draft picks, if you will, are typically more stereotypically physically attractive. This is nuts, right? And so when we are living our lives as women, so many of us, if not all of us on some level, are valuing our appearance. I mean, if you think about if you go onto even social media, how many social media feeds are there about hair, makeup, exercise, body? Even for menopause and perimenopause, a lot of it is driven by maintaining some youthfulness without saying anti-aging, because we don't want to say that.
I don't want to say that.
So what are we valuing ourselves for, right? Where do we value ourselves for our intellect, for our social contribution, for our commitments and the meaning and the purpose that we have in our life? And so for me, one of the big pieces that I pull on, especially when I have those moments in the mirror of ooh, I didn't expect to see you today. I expected to see you 20 years ago, is just what am I valuing about myself? Not that we aren't still gorgeous, beautiful, and amazing however we look and however we change, But that can be a real hit to our self-confidence and our self-concept. But if we start valuing other aspects of our lives, including the mentorship that we can bring, the leadership that we can bring, the teaching, the guidance to other women, to younger people in our communities, we can totally shift what we're bringing to the world, but also how we feel about ourselves. So for me, mentorship is probably the biggest right now.
I love that answer. And I love that calling. Ooh, it feels so good. Oh, I love this conversation so much, Dr. Aviva Romm. Thank you so much. Where can we get more of you?
You can get more of me at my website at avivaromm.com. You can hang out with me on Instagram over at Dr. Aviva and join my newsletter, join my programs. There's so many ways to connect with me. Listen to my podcast. But if you really want to kind of get the direct dial in, Instagram's a great place to go because I'm always going to be giving the download on what I'm doing in other spaces over there.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for this beautiful conversation and for your time today.
Thank you for all that you're doing and bringing in this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Now, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments. And if you are ready to learn more about perimenopause and how to navigate with a lot of ease and grace, be sure to subscribe to this channel so that you can join our community. Don't forget to share this video with someone that you love, that you know is navigating the perimenopause journey as well, because they deserve to feel their best too. See you in the next video.